Welcome to Start Local, where we talk with business owners, leaders of nonprofits, and other members of our community focused on doing business in and around Chester County, Pennsylvania. Each episode will provide insight into the local business scene and tell you about opportunities to connect with and support businesses and nonprofits in your local area.
The Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce promotes trade, commerce, industry, and sustainable economic development while supporting a diverse and growing marketplace. The Chamber is proud to partner with the Start Local podcast to raise the profile of businesses and nonprofits throughout Chester County. Learn more about the Chamber at sccc.com. That's sccc.com.
Hey, welcome to Start Local. I'm Liam Dempsey, and I am back in the studio today with my wonderful co-host, Eric Goodmanson. Eric, how are you, bud?
I'm doing well, and I'm excited to be talking about more food here on this podcast.
Yeah, we've lucked out here, folks. We have a string of food in recent episodes, so this is good. We're excited for today. Today, we're going to be speaking with Brendan Cawley. Brendan is the CEO of Righteous Felon, a snack company with deep roots right here in Chester County, in Downingtown, more specifically. Hello, welcome. Brendan, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Brendan, it's good to see you, and thank you for coming into the podcast studio.
Absolutely. Excited to dive in with you guys.
Yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to begin by giving our listeners some context. Righteous Felon makes meat snacks like jerky and biltong and meat sticks. While we'll get into kind of the specifics of that later, let's talk a little bit about your founding. It's a story of middle school friends who took their pocket money hustle really to the next level. Can you give us the Reader's Digest version of your backstory, please?
Absolutely. So, like a lot of kids and even adults, I, at a young age, found beef jerky and really loved it, but always it was kind of a treat for me because, as most of us know, jerky is a more expensive snack compared to other salty snacks like nuts or chips or pretzels or things like that. But as a kid, always, bought a stick of Wild Bill's jerky when we were getting pizza at like the Italian Village, down in Downingtown. I was visiting family out in Pittsburgh. My dad's side of the family is from Pittsburgh, and my uncle out there worked at I think it was Luke and Steel at the time, and we got to his house one day. He took me downstairs, and he had this little mini jerky factory there with 2 or 3 dehydrators, 2 refrigerators full of raw meat and different marinades in giant Tupperwares. And it was kind of like an epiphany to me. And he taught me that this snack that I love could actually be made at home. And he was making it at home, bagging it up into Ziplocs with putting his sticker on it, his brand, and he'd take it to work and sell it each day there. And this just kind of blew my mind. Just the idea that a commercial, I didn't know the word commercial at that time, but the idea that a commercial branded product could just be made at home and then taken and sold. And I think maybe it was one of the first signal of entrepreneurship, or when, entrepreneurship first clicked in my head, was probably that day. And he taught me, how he made the jerky, things to look out for, kind of his process, key ingredients. And I kind of took that home that weekend. My parents were nice enough to either, buy me a dehydrator for my birthday or Christmas. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I just started cooking up batches at home, and my best friends got into it with me. We were cooking up jerky on the weekends. It was a very strange hobby for some 10-year-olds, I think.
Very strange, and would create some interesting aromas in the house, I bet, too.
Oh, yeah, big time. Well, my dog at the time was not the same dog I have here next to me, but Murphy at the time was a huge fan of the makeshift jerky factory in our house, and the benefactor of a lot of product when we took our eyes off her while I was cooking up. But yeah, we kind of followed suit. So myself and my 2 best friends, Tucker Reinhardt and Kyle Whitmore, we started bagging up jerky at my house and taking it into Downingtown Middle School and selling it hand-to-hand transactions in the hallways and bathrooms to other friends in our grade, and it looked very similar to some other all natural product distribution that was just starting around that time in junior high. And a teacher saw us kind of doing one of these cash for baggie of product transaction and pinched us and took us to the principal's office for what he thought was us selling weed. And we were, able to quickly clear our names and the charges and prove that it was just beef jerky and a misunderstanding. But to us, that misunderstanding was hilarious. And between the three of us, that inside joke just kind of stuck for years as we would make jerky for snowboarding trips or music festivals as we got into high school and, all that type of stuff. And we always just talked about it as this underground substance or this illicit contraband and had fun with it. And, it just so happened that at that time, the brands that we really liked, like, Wild Bill's or Buffalo Bob's and, Randy Savage was like the Slim Jim spokesperson, kind of an outlaw himself. But that sort of outlaw persona of the category at that time is really what influenced us to, between the misunderstanding at middle school and then the outlaw persona that jerky has just as a category. Righteous Felon kind of came up as a joke or an oxymoron to kind of as like a tongue-in-cheek reference to those other outlaw brands. It was never, we never had a significant business plan in our heads. It was more so just having fun creating jerky and then creating some packaging and some, if you're familiar, I'm sure we'll get into some of the names of our products, but we try to have fun with like puns and play on words or satires of some famous felons or famous characters or pop culture icons that maybe have a mischievous past or a mischievous undertone to them. And we just had a ton of fun with it, and friends and family had fun with it as we got started back in 2012 or 13. And, it spread from there.
And over time, I've seen your products in more and more stores. I see it everything from Giant to Costco, and starting with local bars and things like that. Many years ago, and it's amazing to see how quickly you've grown into a multi-million-dollar food company.
Thank you.
Your products are natural; they're locally sourced. You even have dog treats. So tell us a little bit more about your product range, and where are some specific local places where people can find your products today?
Yeah. So we started out with 3 jerky flavors in 2013. Really, it was like December 2012 is we landed our first wholesale account, which was the Whiskey Brooklyn up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where my brother was living at the time. So jerky was our first product line. Today we have 9 different flavors within that subcategory. In 2016 or so, we launched meat sticks, like better for you meat sticks. So kind of a healthy, clean, high protein, low sugar Slim Jim. And then in 2020, we launched biltong, which is a South African style meat snack that has 0 sugar, really high density protein, no soy sauce, no gluten-free, soy-free. That one was like really popular during the keto craze, kind of in the late 2000 teens and into early 2020s. And then I guess 2020 we also launched. It was a separate company at that time called Wild Ranger Pet, which I started with another local entrepreneur out in Westchester, Colin Phelan, and due to the chaos of COVID during that time, we started planning that brand and project in 2019, launched early 2020, world turned upside down. Colin had his first kid. Within about a year, we realized, hey, this could make more sense if we folded it into the existing kind of Righteous Felon business entity. And Colin, who's an expert at that time and more so today in e-commerce, joined us as our overall VP of e-commerce. And that's worked out really well, particularly for all the dogs with, the employees and myself here. But of that catalog, today, meat sticks are the biggest part of the catalog. And that's really changed over the last 2 to 3 years. The market has really shifted more towards these better for you better for you meat sticks. A lot of women have come into the category where historically jerky was really male driven. That changed as more high protein, low sugar, low carb diets have come into popularity. And, we like having that breadth of assortment across different formats of meat snacks, but they all, so we can appeal to different consumers or to help retailers fill in different parts of their assortment that they feel needs beefed up, for lack of a better word.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. No, never any puns here at Righteous Felon.
It would be a crime if you used a pun.
Oh boy, it's going to be a long episode, Liam.
Grab hold of your headphones. Brendan, let me ask you, where can folks buy yours? Eric mentioned that he's seen it in Costco and Giant. Where else are you available locally?
Yeah, so just staying on the larger retailers. So Giant Foods has been a great partner of ours. Costco, we launched in the Northeast late 23. We're now nationwide at Costco. They're a great partner and always have great prices on products. Wawa is another, carries 2 of our SKUs here throughout the Mid-Atlantic. So they're great partners that really kind of help get us into a lot of stores and be more available to, we like having better for you and healthier products more available to more consumers. And those retailers really help with that. But I think the coolest part about the company and one of the things I'm most proud of is like how we've stayed true to the local partners that really helped launch us in the early days. And some of those locally here would be like Leone's Pizza in Downingtown. They have a huge display, and they have since the first day I ever walked in there and asked Travis if he would be willing to sell the brand there. All the beer distributors around here, whether it's Exton Beverage, Lou Beverage, Beer Mill, almost all the beer distributors or bottle shops within Chester County. I think probably 80% of them carry Righteous Felon, and they have from the early days. Who else? Some local breweries.
That's really amazing. That's so cool that it started locally and grew from there.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about your products a little bit because they have really creative and fun names, and I'm going to name just a few of them here. Teriyaki Balboa beef jerky, Foul Capone turkey jerky, and Maryland Monroe beef jerky. And they all come with these wonderful, silly illustrations that are both consistent in their styling, but also correspond to the product name.
Yep.
So who comes up with the names and who works up the illustrations?
Great question. I think it's the biggest differentiator of the brand and the area that we have the most fun with. Jerky, no matter how good jerky is, there's a lot of brands out there that make great jerky. But what we saw within the market, or what we thought was missing, was that sort of fun, playful naming convention that we were inspired by from the craft beer industry in the early days. And we try to have a ton of fun with that. I think we've probably had 15 different jerky and sort of we call them characters that we've made over the years. And I think probably 12 of those have come, the naming convention has come from Tucker and I. Tucker's my best friend. He was one of those guys in middle school. He's co-founder of the company, lives out in Colorado, still very much, kind of my creative partner, not just in this project, but we spitball on a lot of different bits and things, and we always have. But other folks on the team, other friends have submitted ideas that have landed. I think Victorious BIG was our collaboration with Victory Brewing Company. Other best friend, Jeff Walk, who works here as well. That was his brainchild back in the day. So we'll really take the recommendations on naming from anyone. And if it's usually, we'll try a million things. And when one hits, everyone kind of knows when it hits. There's not a real science to it, but you kind of just know when it lands and it's funny and it makes sense. And sometimes it's the pun that inspires the flavor. Other times it's the ingredients that inspire the pun. And so, like, an example of that would be teriyaki. Was really driven by, we knew that teriyaki was a popular, one of the key flavor profiles within the category. It's something we thought we needed in order to penetrate the convenience channel. Like a Wawa, and that's the main place that product is sold today. So that one was like spitballing for months on like what could be funny. Teriyaki is such a tough word to rhyme or to pun.
Sure is.
And that was one of Tuck's where one day, and that one's so funny because it doesn't actually, the wording is so far off of the namesake, Rocky, but it works, we think, and it just kind of tricks your brain a little bit, and that little deception of the brain, I think, is what makes you chuckle or smile with it.
Certainly combined with the illustration and the connection to Philly. It's a winner all around. It's a comprehensive package.
Brendan, I remember you talking about how you initially partnered with some local breweries to both distribute the product and also come up with some of the new ingredients and flavors and things like that. How did you draw inspiration from local breweries, and are there any particular local breweries that are always just been attractive to you from a brand or emulation or even mentoring standpoint?
Absolutely. So I think we were super lucky growing up in Downingtown to kind of watch firsthand as Victory Brewery went from an idea into a full-fledged, national powerhouse within craft beer. So I remember going there like after Little League games when I was a kid, just, drinking the root beer that they brewed there. So Victory has always been kind of a flagship, the flagship craft brewery for me, and probably got my friends and I into that scene earlier than maybe very similar folks that just lived in a town that didn't have a great brewer in it, right? But what inspired us about craft beer, and at that point in my life, craft beer was very synonymous with just Victory, was, the flavor profiles were so much bolder and better ingredients and just completely different, like truly differentiated from what everyone else thought beer was, which at that point was just macro light lagers across the US, right? And it was almost like, like when you would sip it, and again, I was young at that point, you'd be like, this is, so different from like the Yinling lager my dad's drinking or the Miller Lite we're stealing from my neighbor. That just was a profound thing. Is like, wow, this is beer. That's weird. I didn't know beer could be this. But it was that coupled with the awesome branding, which was just like so different from Miller Lite and Budweiser, right? It was like Hop Wallop and Hop Devil and Storm King. And hey, guess what? If you're in the pub and you mix half a Storm King and half a Hop Devil, we call that a Silverback. It opened up this whole, this world that I just didn't know existed within food. And then, on top of that, you layer in like how, as I expanded outside of that, and like Heady Topper and Sculpin by Ballast Point and Pliny the Younger and Pliny the Elder, these like larger than life tales of these hard to get things. Like it almost was like trading cards, but it was beer. And that world, I was very inspired and just loved, the world of craft beer and seeking out like hard to get things. And that always got the gear turning of like, well, if we did this with jerky, how would we kind of make jerky that desirable or that cool to be on a shelf? Like it can't just be a plastic bag of jerky and it's called like Brendan's Jerky or Westchester Jerky Company. That's not going to get anyone excited. So that's where we, our first 3 flavors we launched were OG Hickory, which was kind of inspired by Omar from The Wire. Habanero Escobar, which was, inspired by Pablo Escobar, which by no means is a righteous guy, but in pop culture in America, like he's kind of glorified in so many different movies and plots. And I think at around the same time that we were starting this company, Entourage was like one of the most popular shows on HBO, and Vinny Chase's main movie that they were always trying to make through every season was Escobar. And he was the main character. So like that was really top of mind at that time.
Let's talk about your production and distribution process. Do you
Sure.
run your own processing plants? How do you get all those delicious pieces of meat into nifty, fancy packaging and out to so many locations? What's that look like?
How much time do you have? No, it's
how about 3 minutes?
Yeah. It's grown complex as we've grown, but the model can actually be pretty simplified. We have manufacturing partners that own USDA certified facilities with great food safety programs and USDA personnel on site each day. And early on, I was lucky enough to find. Today, it's pretty easy to find those folks if you have a good business plan and it's contract manufacturing. But back then in 2011, 12, when I was looking for them, there wasn't many. I was very lucky to find an awesome family out in Gettysburg, the Arndt family. They had a small garage at that point that somehow had USDA certification, and they were legally allowed to smoke meats in there and sell them, across the country. And Evan was only probably 23 at that time, and he and I became friends and just started, making jerky together there and selling it at those first few accounts that we had talked about. Whiskey Brooklyn and Victory and some of those other breweries that were early adopters, Leone's, Waywood Beverage. And essentially what we do is we come up with the flavors, the recipes here or at my house at that time or here at our warehouse today. We'll scale, we'll take those, from our dehydrator here into smaller production batches at these co-packers. We'll launch that in our program that we call our R&D program, which is a pretty cool bag with a backwards R and a D. And then we'll release those as web-only specials, like essentially our jerky lab. And the ones that do the best with our consumers, or the recipes they like the best and we get the best feedback on, is if there's a business case there for it, we'll launch that as a new flavor. And at this point, we actually have 8 of those different co-packers around the country. We have 3 for meat sticks. We have 2 for beef jerky. We have one for biltong, and we have 1 for pet treats. And I guess the 8th is, we're working on a 4th for sticks, because sticks has become such a huge part of our business. And the great part about this is, we get to meet a lot of other great family businesses or families that have been running these great smokehouses or running great family farms. It's another thing is we source Rosetta Farms. We've been sourcing from day one. 44 farms now in Texas. Certified Piedmontese out of the Midwest. We use a lot for our factories in the Midwest. And it's great for business because you have redundancy. Like if one factory has an issue or, they have COVID, that was something that, believe it or not, happened a lot where a whole plant would be wiped out for a week or two. We're not out of, we're not stopping production. We can shift production to another site. And they pack it up, in a very food safe facility that's inspected, regularly certified. That product all gets cased and put into, shelf ready cases at those sites. It's all shipped into our warehouse here on the Exton Downingtown border. And then we warehouse it all here and we distribute to roughly 12,000 different distribution points around the country, as well as, big e-commerce on our own website and on Amazon. So all over the country.
That journey of going from, your parents' garage to what you just described is incredible to me. And I want to focus on you personally, Brendan, here for a moment. You're the CEO of Righteous Felon. And your work history, we didn't touch on it yet, but it includes 5 years at Lockheed Martin, which is going to be a very, very different experience, I would expect, than everything you did to grow Righteous Felon to where it is today. So, what did you do there, and how did that experience help you prepare yourself for everything you had to do to get Righteous Felon off the ground?
Great question. So it's at the time I was there, it was called Sikorsky Aircraft. I think LinkedIn switched it automatically to Lockheed when Lockheed bought them. But nevertheless, yeah, it was aerospace industry, particularly the commercial helicopter Cub for Sikorsky, which was in Coatesville, PA. And believe it or not, I think that that job was so similar to what I've done here at Righteous Felon. And I think that job actually enabled a lot of what we've been able to do here. And actually, my right-hand man at Sikorsky is our CFO and COO here today at Righteous Felon, which is pretty cool. But what I did there, I started as an intern. I graduated in 2008, which I didn't really understand what a recession was at the time. I was 21, but I was lucky enough for them to invite me back after that during 2008, the economic downturn. And my job was essentially, I think it originally was just an estimator. And I thought that would be pretty straightforward and mostly based in Excel. But what it actually became, it grew into a much larger sort of like proposal management, I would say, where my job was essentially each day to meet with key personnel and the department leads across engineering, supply chain, quality, operations, finance, and pull together all their inputs about cost, labor, schedule, certification challenges for like new designs, and synthesize all of that into a proposal and a timeline and a price that I would then pitch to the GM of the whole site virtually every day. I had to pitch Dorit, who's a rock star, but very, very tough. And I'd have to wait till 6 or 7 at night until all her other meetings were done to pitch to her everything that I've pulled together about, something she needs to sign up for between 50 million and sometimes up to $1 billion program. And she would ultimately be responsible for executing that. So she obviously looked at this very closely and was really tough on me, and as well as Dave, the guy who now works here. He had the same role. But it taught us to really, one, to get a great idea, a vast appreciation for all the different inputs that go into forming a business plan. Each one of these things was essentially a business plan, a project plan, a financial plan, and managing all those competing priorities between different groups, the competing personalities between different groups, and bring that into a concise thing that a GM or the leader of the site could assess and digest and make a decision on in relatively quick time. And that process of like taking things from down to the nuts and bolts all the way up to like high level, hey, can you sign up for this $50 million aircraft in 10 minutes? Our pitch and our proposal to her had to be very, very tight for her to be able to approve it or not approve it, or to tell us exactly what questions she needs more clarification on. And that was immediately transferable, I think, to a startup business where it's like, look, I got to talk to the USDA. I got to talk to the FDA. I need to find a packaging supplier. I need an artist. I need to find a beef supplier. Somehow I need to make this. I need equipment. I need to get licensing. You're pulling together so many different things, and the ability to have a framework on how to puzzle piece those all together was a direct outcome of the challenges I faced early on, and the mentorship that I got at Sikorsky from Dorit, from Chris Pete, from Jason Andros, some really great people there that I owe a lot to, just for like challenging me and taking the time to teach me a lot of things that they didn't have to take the time to teach me. So I'm very appreciative of all the different mentors and sort of coaches I've had through the years.
Thanks for walking us through that. That's really interesting, the way the helicopter industry enabled you to dive deep and become quite successful in the meat snack industry.
Yeah.
Can you call it the meat snack industry? Can we call it that?
Absolutely. We can call it whatever you guys like, but that is what it's called.
Appreciate your flexibility. So you shared earlier that the whole Righteous Felon story is an outgrowth of really a side hustle of a few middle school kids, and clearly you're well beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Righteous Felon as a company, as an employer. What
Sure.
roles and departments do you have within your company, and how big are you? How many people work for Righteous Felon?
So today we have 20 folks, including myself, on the commercial team. So that's either our sales team, marketing team, or supply chain here within the warehouse, like our salary guys who are doing a lot of the logistics, coordination across all these sites. We consider them part of the commercial team. And then on top of that, we have about 5 full-time warehouse folks, and then another 10 to 15, depending on the season, part-time warehouse pack labor. And that flexes up a lot during holidays and like Father's Day, because we have a huge gifting component to our business. And almost everyone is either friends of mine from a young age, or started here as interns when they were at Westchester University, and then we brought them on full time, and or they started here as an intern, and then their brother or their cousin or their boyfriend, needed a job, and they started here. And pretty proud that, it's very unorthodox how we hire. Like we've only, out of like 70 people that have probably worked here through the years at part-time, or maybe not 70, maybe 50, but only one has ever been through like actually, no, we've never hired anyone from like a job posting. It's always been a friend of a friend or a connection or referral. And it's not orthodox, but it's worked for us. And we got a really great, tight-knit team here that hangs out a lot outside of work. I think COVID really brought a lot of the team together. This was like the only group we were kind of allowed to hang out with. And, also all of our salaried team is has some equity in the company as well. It's an employee-owned company, which I think goes a long way as far as just like, I don't think I have to worry about a lot of the things that other small business employers have to worry about, of just like people slacking, or do they have the best interest of the company in mind? The ownership and the accountability, I think, really helps take care of that. And everyone here is like laser focused on just being great teammates and achieving a team goal. And that's worked really well for us. And I know
the culture seems to come through in the sense that, your branding is always very consistent, all the way down to the illustration. Like, is it the same person that does the illustrations on all your packaging all the way through? Because it really is clear what you're about. You have established a brand, undoubtedly.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have another great Downingtown guy, Dan Homa, did our original artwork. And from that time, he's done some other things for us, but we have another artist now that kind of does the decoration on the bull, like however that, whatever new garb we're going to put on this new flavor. We also use an offshore, a girl from Italy who does more of our stick packaging artwork, and we're thrilled with what she does. But just like we keep all the same employees here, we have almost all the same suppliers from day one. Like, we've really proud about the relationships we've been able to build and maintain, particularly through difficult times like COVID. There's a lot of the ability to like stick with people and then to stick with us through the ebbs and flows of a 12-year-old business now, and always, have each other's backs and grow together and get through challenges together. I think is another cool thing that I'm proud of about the company.
Well, another thing you share is a membership in the Conservation Alliance. So there's a cause as well. And the Conservation Alliance, it's a membership group of businesses which share a percentage of their respective profits with the Alliance, and then direct organizations and programs in North America that protect outdoor and wild spaces. So why did you select that particular cause of all the causes that are out there? And why is it important to you and your organization?
Well, I think One, I love the national parks. My dad and I try to hit a national park once a year together. So it's key to me. I think it's one of the great programs that the U.S. has. And anytime you go to one, I think it's one of the few places anymore that you can truly be just awestruck and jaw dropped from nature. And that has I think more of us could use that. I think it would solve solve a lot of problems here. Two is jerky has always been kind of synonymous with the outdoors. And so for us, I think there's alignment there. So for those two reasons, that's, where the Conservation Alliance comes into play is I think it's a great program that needs, financial support and it's something we should look to expand versus retract. I wouldn't say it's not really a flagship. Liam, you and I talked about this once. Like we do some charitable things like that, and with some other organizations, we don't try to make it the forefront of the brand. I think that's a trend that other folks do, and it has its place. But I think small business is hard enough on its own, creating a value proposition based on product and nutrition and building a good team and a community amongst the work team and the vendors and the customers. And I personally just haven't been able to ever find the space to make. I don't want people to buy our product because they think we support the Conservation Alliance. I would like them to buy our product because it's great. It brings them value. They find it fun. They like sharing it with their family and friends. And if the Conservation Alliance is a feather in the cap, then so be it. That's really just something we do because we think it's the right thing to do for businesses to financially support causes that they think are worthwhile.
Brendan, you shared that you run some of your R&D through your online website sales. And, all of your products or the bulk of products are available online through your site, which is Shopify, which is a web designer, web marketer. I love to see what people are using. Yep. Can you share with us what kind of percentage of sales are coming directly through your website, direct to consumers? How much of a valuable tool is that for your business?
Yeah, it's a super valuable tool. I can tell you right now.
For those that can't see, he's flipping through what appears to be a printout of financial reports.
So direct to consumer last year for us, which is our Shopify site, was 12% of sales. That probably doesn't, we did last year was about $5 million just through our website. And more than half of that comes in Father's Day and December, from Black Friday through the end of the year. So if you can imagine, those months are absolutely insane here at the warehouse, and that's really where we staff up. But Shopify, I think I was probably one of the first, 1,000 or 10,000 people on that store. I got on in 2012. I couldn't be a bigger proponent of the platform. It's so critical to what we do. We use it for our wholesale business as well, which is rtznbrands.com. And we have Monica, who's our first employee, our first intern. She's an absolute, pro across the Shopify platform now. And so we think of that as like a real competitive advantage, is one, how capable that software is. And then two, when you have someone that really knows how to command it, you can solve almost any sort of ordering or product management issue just, with that combination of skill and then the capability of the platform.
Going back to your product names, which it's just fun to go on your website and kind of look at all the product names, because some of them I haven't seen in stores necessarily, at least not the same store. You're pulling names from people with checkered pasts in the sense that there's a light and a dark side to the individual, and I appreciate that shade. Who in pop culture is doing something that you find inspiring today?
Well, I'll go to kind of, I thought about this a lot, about why we went this way, or really I went this way with the brand. And I think a lot of it is Allen Iverson. If you guys think about, I was in high school in 2000 and 2004. Iverson was this bad boy. I was a big basketball player and fan. I think everyone around Philadelphia was a Allen Iverson fan in those days. Underdog, small guy going up against giants, severely checkered past, tattoos all over him, cornrows, which today is the status quo. But back then he caught a lot of flack for that, right? I was absolutely obsessed with him. And to me, in hindsight, like, he is that righteous felon. He was a guy that came from nothing, got into a lot of trouble, probably was profiled a bit and put into a box, but emerged from that, put the city on his back, went against Shaq and Kobe in the finals. Like, he is, I think, a huge inspiration to kind of the brand, but also just like where the world was at that time for kids, for young men. I think, Tony Soprano was there, The Wire, Jay-Z, Biggie, even like Fish, I'm a huge fan of Fish. They even had this, although if you know them well, they're playful and stuff, but like outsiders really think of them as, like a drug scene and things like that. That paradox or oxymoron between like how I think almost any entity or any person is not 100% good or 100% bad, but is an actual, much more complex than that, I think is where the brand was inspired by, and the people that inspired it. And there's probably 20 more I could name. Today, I'm a huge LeBron James fan, like diehard. And people that know me are, don't like that. They're freaked out by it. Our cat, when my wife got a kitten without my approval 2 years ago, and the trade-off was I got to name it. And so this little girl kitten that we have is named LeBron. And and I think that, that guy is just an inspiration from, also fits into the paradigm, I think, of Righteous Felon. He was, put on a pedestal very young, and then from the time he was in high school, scrutinized, supposed to be the best player ever, but constantly and never-endingly scrutinized and challenged, and it's gone on forever. And, even this week is kind of the pinnacle of it with what's going on with him and Stephen A. Smith. And this guy has done nothing but, he married his high school sweetheart. He's the best dad in the world. He donates millions of dollars a year to these educational funds in Ohio. He makes these incredible movies that promote like good messages for kids. He brought all his friends along with him, like Mav Carter, these other guys from his high school, like those are his tight circle. They've done incredible business things. And the most incredible thing is he just continued to play basketball and work and be committed to the game through 2 decades now. The guy's still a top 3 guy in the NBA, maybe top 1, and he's 40 years old. And, I saw him play at the Palestra when I was 17. He was a year above me. And just the idea that he's still playing today, still catching so much hate from so many people, but just continues to stay in his lane, do good things, and put up numbers. He's a big inspiration. And, to me, just as not as a, business person, but just as a man, and like, what's good, how do you handle yourself? How do you help people that need help? And just try to, just be a good person and ignore some of the distractions that come along the way.
I'm from Northeastern Ohio, and even though he hasn't played in Cleveland in a long time, he basically is a saint there. He is considered royalty, no doubt. So I agree with what you're saying.
Brendan, as we understand it, the recipe that you created in 6th grade is really still in use today. It's the core recipe for your products, maybe with a few tweaks here and there.
Yep.
So is there a direct line there? Or is it the general recipe that all your products use, or is it it's on this product but not on that product? Talk us through that a little bit.
Sure. So the original recipe is very, very similar to what we use today. The main changes are there were some things early on that we would use, like say Worcestershire sauce, which I'm sure I don't think anyone can actually pronounce that word right. And that has, that's really key flavor profile to add to the marinade, I think, not just with jerky, but with a lot of, meat steaks and things like that. But it contains these things. The main thing it contains is sardine. It contains sardines. That's one of like the key flavors on like Lee and Perrins Worcestershire. And a fish allergen is something you can't really have going through commercial factories. And I discovered that, probably in like 2014 or 15, where we were already making the jerky for a year or two, but then discovered, our factory said, hey, due to this new USDA regulation or this SQF, we're trying to get these allergens out of our factory. And we just, started trying to reverse engineer it at home with what we think the core essence of the flavor is. And it's honestly, we were able to get it back to molasses, vinegar, a little bit of cinnamon, clove is key, and salt. And basically got it to the point where we're just mixing things up at home and have a side-by-side of like Lee and Perrins versus our homemade Worcestershire that doesn't contain sardines, and got it to a point where it was virtually indetectable from us just in a jar versus, what we bought at the store. And then bam, how do we scale that up into the 500 pound batches? And it worked. And not only was that like a fish allergen thing, but across the recipe, you start to look at like things that you buy at the store, like a retail formula. And then you're like, well, what's the key? There's so much overlap, like salt, vinegar, water. There's always so much overlap and like from different sauces. So then you're just like, well, how do we pull that out? Get the water out of there, just get the core ingredients that are driving the flavor, keep that in the recipe, and then just add back water, vinegar, et cetera, to get back to the holistic recipe.
Talk about ingredients and changing ingredients around, but preserving the flavor. I'm looking at your logo right now, and it says Righteous Felon Craft Jerky.
Yep.
Would you ever consider doing a vegan jerky?
We have, for sure. There was a point in time, it's weird. It's weird because I still feel like a newcomer in the space. And I sometimes forget that I've been now doing this for 12 years. But I now am just starting to see some of the trends that we've gone through or cycles we've gone through over the last decade. And like, I remember being at the Expo East trade show like 5 years ago. It's a big trade show in our industry for natural foods. And we were there promoting our beef jerky. This is like 2019, maybe 18. And we were almost like we were like shamed from people. And as well as they were just confused that we were like, they're pushing beef jerky because at that point it was like Impossible Burgers, Beyond Meat. Everyone was the country was so infatuated with non-meat or fake meat or vegan stuff. And I remember being like, this is so bizarre. Like, this person's mad at us because they just took a sample and they assumed it to be vegan. And the roundabout way of getting to your thing is like, there was a point in time where that stuff was so popular that we felt we had to explore that just to satisfy wherever the market was headed. But as you guys may or may not know, like that whole market has completely collapsed. Those firms have gone bankrupt. Beyond Meat did a beef jerky with Pepsi that, went out to like 250,000 stores and within a month. And almost all of it was returned. It never took off. It was such a huge fad that just exploded and then dropped. And I'm happy that we never went too far down the path of exploring it. The things we have done and explored but never launched would be like a mango jerky. We've done some cool experiments locally with mushroom jerkies, like doing marinating, dehydrating shiitakes. And they're great. They taste good. And, unfortunately, 5 or 10 years ago, I would launch almost anything that tastes good. Today, because of how many people we have that work here and how this is the livelihood of so many people. And when we launch something, the fact that we have to be able to supply that and have it sell through at least 5,000 retailers to be kind of cover the development cost. And these things are always going to steal from another existing SKU or flavor we have on the store, right? A store is never just going to give you endless space. It's like, hey, look, we'll put your shiitake mushroom in, or we'll put your Soul Survivor jerky in, but which one are we taking off? And then that becomes a real business decision of, again, that's, all the people that work here and the goals that we have as a company. You don't want to rock the boat of something that's working really well. And that's, I think how the business has evolved a bit. And I like both parts, but I really used to love just the R&D process and doing cool stuff with other cool brands. Like, we did the Victory thing. We did a partnership with Baby Blues Barbecue down in Philadelphia, Baby Blues Jerky. We did that with Voodoo Chili Hot Sauces, which was an awesome Jimi Hendrix kind of themed bowl bag, which I love, which we've discontinued since, just from a space, we can't do everything forever. So we've done one with St. Lucifer Spice out of Philadelphia. It was called our Halo Diablo Jerky. Those are the super fun things that unfortunately get harder to do as you grow, because it just becomes difficult to do small batch stuff at a large scale.
Oh, your company's doing something right. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, which is fantastic news for my taste buds. As you continue to grow, are you hiring right now? And if so, where can folks learn about the available positions that you have?
Oh, great timing. Yes, we are hiring. Our website has a careers link on it. We are currently hiring warehouse personnel. We are hiring a social media manager. We are hiring an ops leader to help manage those different production sites that I mentioned and all the logistics that go into getting the raw materials and ingredients and packaging, coordinated through all those sites. We are looking for a sales vice president, a leader of the sales team here. So we have a ton of growth ahead, and we are hiring more so now than we ever have. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, we'll be sure to link to your careers page over on the show notes page on startlocal.co. Brendan, I'm going to ask you what's becoming a more challenging question for our guests.
Sure.
Tell us about a business or nonprofit in Chester County that more folks should know about.
All right, I got two good ones. I think the Natural Lands, they call themselves, is it the Natural Lands and they're over there on Route 1 in Chadds Ford. They're kind of linked with the museum over there, the art museum. I forget the name. But anyways, the Natural Lands group, I think, is awesome. My wife and I and my parents, we all use, Strout Preserve, Cheslin Preserve. There's a handful of other ones in this area. I just think those places are so cool for just hikes or walks on the weekend or at night. That group essentially works to preserve and find more of those opportunities to protect hundreds of acres at a time, or I guess in Cheslin, I think it's 1,310. And I think that's super important in Chester County, because otherwise you guys have probably seen it. I mean, there's any land that's not protected will become townhomes, will become, a Toll Brothers neighborhood. And I'm not saying that's the worst thing. I think it's a great town and we want to welcome more people here. And the more people that are around here, families raised, and the school districts continue to be good, I think that's overall good for society and the local economy. But there's something special about Chester County, particularly along the Brandywine River, that we want to protect, kind of how that land looks today versus how it looked 500 years ago. And so that's one I think people don't need to necessarily donate to, but you should definitely try to get out and spend some time at those parks, because they're awesome, particularly as the weather's getting nicer here.
Friday Night Lights at Cheslin is coming up very soon, so check it out. What was the second organization you had in mind?
Well, real quick on parks, just to go back, was there's another one that people should know about that I don't think gets a lot of credit. It's from where I grew up, and it's down on Bondsville Road, and it's an old World War II textile factory that they've converted now into a walking park. And I was just there last weekend, and that would be, I don't know who actually runs that or how you support it, but it's in East Brandywine, and that place is awesome. Really, really cool spot. I think the Main Street organization is another one that we've supported. We were the headline sponsor last year for the Summer Jam down at Kerr Park. I thought that was an awesome event. I think Downingtown has a has done an awesome job over the last 10 or 15 years in making the downtown center a destination more so than it used to be. But I still think there's a lot to go to make it a true, a place where people just want to come park, hang out for 8 hours and make a day of it. And so that organization, I think, does that. And they're all very passionate. Bill Kovaleski, founder of Victory, is a big part of that. And I didn't get to mention him earlier, but he's been an awesome mentor and friend to me through the years. And I think those two organizations are two that come to mind that everyone can benefit from, even if it's not donating to them. It's just utilizing what they've created to have a great day or have a great, hike.
How can the community here support Righteous Felon? I
think the community has already been such an incredible, community has been awesome to us here. Like, so many friends, family, old schoolmates of mine have been nothing but supportive through the years. I think that's a huge key to our success. That's why I'm happy to remain here, grow the business here. And I would essentially ask, don't change. Just, we really appreciate how everyone supported the brand and cutting us some slack through the years. If, as we've grown, I'm sure there's been stumbles we've made, but, by and large, I think Westchester, Downingtown, Chester County have all been big proponents of Righteous Felon, wear a lot of the t-shirts and the hats and the swag and buy it out in the stores when they see it. I think people don't realize how helpful it is just when they buy the product at a store. Like, stores are easy to get into. They're hard to stay in. Like, every store has a velocity metric, which is like, hey, if we're not moving 3 or 4 or 5 of these a week, like, it's just, underutilized real estate on our shelves. So when people, just support by buying a bag because they like it, that means the world to us. Rocking the gear means the world to us. Even taking pictures when they see it at a store, because otherwise, we actually have employees that we send out just to check on stores. So you can imagine, between labor, gas, how much we invest in making sure store execution is happening. If we get 10 photos in a week from friends that are just like, saw this at Croppers or saw this at Giant, and we're immediately like, oh shit, they're missing our top 2 SKUs. We call that store up. We're like, hey, it looks like you need a replenishment on OG Hickory and Habanero or something. That goes a long way for us. So I think the community is already doing more than I could ever hope for, and I hope it continues.
Well, Brendan Cawley, CEO of Righteous Felon, thank you for coming on the Start Local podcast today. Where can listeners connect with you, learn more about your delicious snacks, and maybe even buy a few today?
I think for me, my Instagram is El Jefe, which is what the team calls me here, at least in our fictitious jerky underground world. That's my nickname. Follow Righteous Felon on Instagram. And as far as getting the product, our website's a great spot. Amazon Prime is a great spot if e-commerce is most convenient. But otherwise, it's Crops Market, Kimberton Whole Foods, Leone's, all the beer distributors in this area, Costco, Giant, Wawa. It's in a lot of spots around here in the Chester County area. And you can always stop by our warehouse as well. We sell bags and we sell product right here out of the warehouse, which is interesting.
Brendan, thanks so much for joining us today. I just want to second your shout out to Bill Kovaleski. He's been a kind friend to this show as well. So he does such good work in the community. So delighted to hear his name spoken with such reverence and respect.
He's an absolute legend. And I think he's who connected us initially.
He did.
He's the best.
Well, thank you also to my co-host, Liam Dempsey. I'm Eric Goodmanson. The Start Local podcast is published every 2 weeks. We invite you to subscribe to Start Local using your favorite podcast app or ask your smart speaker to play the Start Local podcast. You can also visit the Start Local website at startlocal.co for show notes, including links mentioned on the show, as well as summaries of past episodes. We hope you join us for the next episode. Thank you for listening.